Hello everyone, my name is Roya, and I am so sorry about the atrocious lighting in this room right now, but it's nighttime and I just really needed to get this video filmed before I went to Idaho with my band and everything, and this was the only chance I really had to film this, but this is my October wrap-up part 1 with the 5 books that I read in the first half of October, and I have to be honest, the first one I am not actually completely done with. I have like maybe 20 pages left, maybe more like 40, but anyway, that is The Power by Naomi Alderman, and this is a book about basically what society would be like if women were discovered to have an organ in their collarbone that creates electric shocks, and men don't have that. So a lot of crazy stuff happens throughout the world, basically, like Saudi Arabia's monarchy kind of gets ousted because a whole bunch of women sort of just start thinking, hey, I kind of am sick of men's bullshit, so whatever, I have power now that they don't. And then in Moldov, the women sort of take over the southern part and create a different country. And then basically just throughout the world, a bunch of crazy stuff happens. And yeah, so this was a very, very interesting book, or is, since I am still reading it right now. I still have a few chapters at the end, but basically, I really, really liked this book a lot. I think it's very, very important because it really puts into perspective kind of how much power men actually have that women don't in the world, and so how afraid men get when women can do something super crazy that men can't. All of that. So it is a very, very important book. I think that this would be a very important book for men to read, especially just because most of the men I know just really have no idea what it's like to be a woman in our society, and how they have no idea what it's like to be judged based on your gender and all of that other stuff. Well, maybe they do, but for totally different reasons. So basically, I would highly recommend this book to pretty much everybody, but also I have to warn you, there is one part on about page 240 or 250-ish. There is a part that actually made me think I was gonna vomit, and I don't mean I just felt sick to my stomach. I mean I actually rushed to the bathroom because I thought I was going to be sick. Like, it's insane. So if you've read this book, you probably know what part I'm talking about, but it was more the description of it than anything else. Like, it just made me actually feel like I was gonna throw up, so that was very weird, but that's not necessarily a negative thing. It was just very strange because that had never happened to me before. But yeah, I really, really like this book, and it's awesome. The first book that I finished in the month of September, or October, I mean, was Elantris by Brandon Sanderson, and I read this as a buddy read with Kelsey from Hardback Haven, and this is actually very similar to Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, because it is about a princess who goes to another kingdom to marry somebody who is dead but also not, and meanwhile we have another character who is going to a different kingdom that is unfamiliar to them, and they wind up basically half dead at some point, and they also spend the whole book navigating the weird magic system of that world. So in this case it's her husband, and in Warbreaker it's her sister who does that. But anyway, so this is very, very a very, very interesting book, and since I loved Warbreaker, the similarities didn't bother me or anything. I just thought it was really interesting that it had such a similar premise. But anyway, basically this is about a prince named Rowden who gets this disease that used to be like a good thing. It used to be the thing that turned people into gods, but now it turns people into undead things because something went wrong. So basically, you get wounded in some way, like you cut yourself, you feel that forever. It never heals. So basically everyone who gets this goes off to Elantris, which used to be the city of the gods, but now it's the city of like half-dead people. So then the princess from a different kingdom who was supposed to marry him comes there to marry him and realizes that, oh, everyone's telling me he died. Where'd he go? And no one necessarily says, oh, he went to Elantris or anything. Like, no one really knows that. But she still senses that something's a bit amiss, and she knows that not everything is as it seems. Next, I read one of my absolute most anticipated releases of the entire year, and that is that inevitable Victorian thing by E.K. Johnston, and this is an alternate reality sort of story in which the Victorian era never ended and the descendants of Queen Victoria are still in power, but it's modern day basically. So I really liked a lot of stuff about this book. I loved the fact that are two women who fall in love. That was really awesome. I love the fact that there are two people who love the same girl, but she doesn't have to pick between them necessarily. I love the way that, you know, I think 2 out of the 3 main characters are people of color, but I really felt like what this book was missing was just more world building, because I really love alternate reality type stuff. So, and that was partly why I was so interested in reading this. And the world building was just severely lacking. So normally with an alternate reality type of story, I'm really looking forward to, oh, the cool world building. But basically, the first half of this book literally could have taken place anywhere, because it was so generic in a way, because, you know, we have this great world, the Victorian era never ended, there's all this stuff that's going on, but what do we read about? People talking in their kitchens and in their living rooms about the newest party that's coming up and what they're going to wear and all of that. And I was kind of like, okay, well, like, so basically most of this book could have taken place anywhere, and it didn't even feel like an alternate reality type of book. So I still really liked it. I really enjoyed reading it, but I felt like the first half really could have been a little bit more exciting, and the world building just could have been a lot more developed. Before I forget, I'm going to mention the one audiobook that I finished in the first half of the month, and that was Snow Like Ashes by Sarah Rosh. This was not a book that I was necessarily that interested in reading before, but it was recommended to me by the other people who were hosting the royalty readathon that I was helping out with and everything. We chose that as the group book, so we decided to all read it. So I ended up not finishing it for a while. Until I only finished it a little bit ago, really, just because I was listening to it on audiobook, and I don't have a whole lot of time for listening to audiobooks anymore because I'm driving so much less and whatnot. But I didn't dislike this book, but I am very picky about fantasy that tends to be more on the generic side, especially if it's young adult somehow, just because basically this book falls into a lot of the same YA tropes that we always see, like the girl who can pretty much do everything and is good at everything and just wants to fight and hates that everyone's just trying to keep her safe all the time, blah-de-blah-de. And there's just a lot of things like that in it that I kind of felt like, wow, this is really generic, and everything, and the stuff about the world building was just very generic, and I felt like that was just kind of silly. But this book really did have some good themes in it, and I also really enjoyed the relationship between the main character and the man who raised her. Like, they had such a really great dynamic. He was kind of my favorite character the entire time, and so I did end up really enjoying this book a lot more in the second half, but the first half was pretty boring. The book overall is pretty generic, but I feel like a lot of other people would actually enjoy this book a lot more than I did. I think I just personally was very harsh in critiquing it just because of how generic it was. There are a lot of generic YA fantasies that I do like, but the reason that I liked them a lot more is just because they were way more intensely gripping with a lot more stuff happening, whereas this I felt like didn't do that. And finally, I read a thriller. Can you believe it? I actually really like thrillers a lot, and I just have not picked up more than like one all year, so that's kind of weird. So anyway, I read Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney, and this is about a girl named Amber who is, well, a woman, I guess, like she's 35. But anyway, she's in a coma, and she doesn't remember what happens, and gradually throughout the book, we get every other chapter, or every 2 out of 3 chapters, are a flashback to something that happened, and everything, and it goes kind of in order. And meanwhile, we also, about every other chapter to every 3rd chapter, is her in the coma, trying to wake up and seeing what's going on around her, or rather hearing them, I guess, hearing people around her talk, etc., as she, like, kind of gradually remembers what is going on and how she got there. And this was such a good book. It was so weird. The one criticism that I have of it, however, is just the fact that it kind of had 2 creepy, weird storylines going on at once, especially towards the end, and I felt like neither of them got a true explanation. So I mean, we understand what happened, but we don't really understand the why or the how. And so that was just weird to me, but I did really, really enjoy this book a lot, and I definitely recommend it if you like thrillers. So there you have it, folks. These 3 books plus the 1 audiobook are the books that I read in the first half of October. Let me know if you've read any of these, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye!